And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're going to take a look at this game called Squish Blocks. Actually, it comes in a very small, squished little box. And the cards, well, they look almost like parts of a computer game. It's an abstract game in which you're playing cards on the table, trying to squish other blocks. Does that not make a lot of sense? Well, let's take a look at the game and maybe it will make more. Let's start out by taking a look at the cards that come with Squish. As you can see, they have these blobulars on them, and inside are 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 different dots. They almost look like the sides of a die. And you're going to take these and shuffle these and make a square. Now, it doesn't really matter, I guess, what size square you make. There's different size squares for different people, but we'll start with a pretty simple 3x3 square. Each player gets a hand of 2 cards. And on your turn, you're going to place a card on top of one of these spots in the square. When you do that, you take the card that's along with it. Now, on your turn, what you're trying to do as these squares are placed down by the different players, what you'd like to do is place a square so that 2 blocks come in between it. There's one color surrounded by 2 of another color. When that happens, squish! They squish the block like that. You get to keep this one, and you place another one like that, and you keep going. Now, you are allowed to play a card outside of the grid, and that will, let's say this was turned over, and that was squish, but when you do that, you get no card to take its place, so then you're down to 1 card. You do it again, you're out of cards. And you keep going till everyone's out of cards, because everybody will be out of cards eventually, because you'll be forced to put them outside the square to squish, or you'll just be forced to play all your cards. And when that happens, you will take all the cards in front of you, add up the point values on them, and whoever has the most points is the winner. There are other versions of the game that you can play called Squish Blocks Basic or Squish Blocks Basic Plus, where you have a handful of cards and you are playing cards and forming this square as you go. And your goal here is to do the same thing basically, but just as you're pulling them out, how is the square going to be built? Will you be able to play something that will squish? And you can always, instead of playing a card from your deck, you can draw the top card from the deck and play it and hope that it's one that you want. Why, yes it is. And then there's also a way to play the game solitaire. But basically, all the games are very similar in which you're trying to put down 2 of these and smush together. That's basically the game. Now here's the deal. I like the artwork. For some reason, even though these blocks are just, they're just a kind of a funky looking convex or concave shaped objects with dots inside them. That's interesting, and they managed to make them look a lot more interesting than I would think, other than just a big square. These look interesting, but I can't help thinking that this is some kind of computer game, some mini clip game or addicting games or Bejeweled type spin-off where someone said, well, why don't we just make a board game about that? Because this seems like it'd be a lot easier to do on the iOS or on the computer, putting these cards down. It's just not that interesting. I never felt like I really had that many options in the game, and I hated that put one outside, lose a card. Well, that might be more of an interesting tactic if I had more than 2 cards in my hand. So I put one down, I only have 1 card left. I guess the game is meant to be played boom, 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 boom. And that's fine, but if I'm going to play a game that quickly and that, bland, I guess I'm looking for something I can throw away on the internet. It looks nice, it's interesting looking and sounding and squish, but when I played it with people, nobody was really that enamored with it. They're like, oh, yeah, I guess it's okay, was the comments that I heard about it. And I don't really want to recommend a game that way, I guess is okay. I want to recommend the game that's actually quite good. So I'm going to have to give this one a thumbs down. It's an interesting idea, but it plays kind of slowly but quick at the same time. Games are very fast, but you don't feel like you ever really did anything. And when you do squish and get a great block of wonder and joy with 5 dots on it, it really feels like you just lucked out there. So how's that strategy? All the different rules, the basic and the basic plus and that, don't really, they change how the game is played, but they don't change how the game feels. So I can't really recommend them either. Sorry, Squish Blocks, not for me.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.